right one, or do you have a new one?
Yeah, that's correct. It's
By the way, if you want to clap, you have to press the C button. Alright.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. Thank you for joining us. I'm honored to have been invited to speak at the Digi Micro Summit before all of my fellow micronationalists and others who are committed to raising the standard in micronational diplomacy. The conduct of foreign relations is a topic I'm very passionate about. While my tenure in micronationalism has now been more than 5 years, for the last 3 I've had the privilege to serve as Minister of Foreign Affairs for the sovereign state of Verismark, where I've been able to practice what I preach here today. This morning I want to talk about conducting micronational foreign relations. Not just having foreign relations, not just collecting names and flags on a list in a Google Drive folder, but doing diplomacy well. And when I say well, I mean with intention, professionalism, and an understanding of why we are doing this for those legal ideas we are borrowing from the macronational world. So let me start with a consideration that many new micronationalists fail to consider. If your nation has no foreign relations, it does not exist outside of itself. You might have a constitution, citizens, and territory, but foreign relations are where legitimacy is established. They are how a state demonstrates that it understands itself as a state. Foreign relations are also where micronationalism stops being a solitary exercise or a simulation and becomes a community. Every message you send, every treaty you draft, and every ambassador you accredit are all acts of statehood. Even if no macronation is watching, other micronations are, and they will remember how you behave. To understand why this matters, we have to discuss the theory. There are 2 prevailing legal theories of statehood under international law. They are the declarative theory and the constitutive theory. Under the declarative theory, a state exists if it meets objective criteria. Recognition is not the threshold for legitimacy. Under the constitutive theory, however, a state only exists once it is recognized by other states, particularly by existing legitimate ones. Micronationalists overwhelmingly rely on the declarative theory whether they know it or not, because under the constitutive theory, almost none of us would qualify. The declarative theory is defined best by the Montevideo Convention on Rights and Duties of States, signed in 1933. Montevideo defines 4 key characteristics of a state. They are a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and a capacity to enter into relations with foreign states. The 4th one is key this morning. Foreign relations are not an accessory to statehood, they are fundamentally a core requirement. If you cannot or will not engage diplomatically with other states, your claim to legitimacy is incomplete under Montevideo. What Montevideo does not say, however, is that you have to be recognized by the UN or control thousands of square miles or have a standing army or a central bank. It simply says that you must have the capacity to enter into relations. Capacity simply means having a foreign ministry or equivalent, identifiable diplomats, consistent communication, and the ability to negotiate, sign, and uphold agreements. That brings us to the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. While micronations are not parties to the Vienna Convention, just as they are not to the Montevideo Convention, it is still important because it defines the norms of diplomacy that we are consciously imitating. If Montevideo tells us what a state is, Vienna tells us how states behave. The Vienna Convention governs diplomatic missions, ambassadors and envoys, diplomatic immunity, privileges and obligations, and non-interference in internal affairs. It is fundamentally about mutual respect. If you appoint an ambassador, that person should behave like one. An ambassador is not a spy, nor a shitposter with a fancy title. An ambassador is an official representative of the head of state and should represent the very best of your country to your friends and allies abroad. Vienna emphasizes that diplomats represent states, not themselves, and micronations should take that seriously. In macronational diplomacy, ambassadors present letters of credence. Micronations should do the same. These documents enshrine the mandate that your ambassador carries and reaffirms their rights under international law and customs. On that note, let's discuss treaties. In my experience, I've seen dozens of different approaches for treaties. some good and some not so much. Fundamentally, the first treaty engagement should be a treaty of mutual recognition. These should be comprehensive binding agreements that factor in mutual consent, defined obligations, a clear entry into force, and a mechanism for termination. My advice is, if your treaty cannot be breached, it is not a treaty. Good treaties include articles, not just bullet points, define terms, responsibilities, and procedures for amendment or withdrawal. To that extent, all of us collectively need to raise the bar to a new standard. At the end of the day, micronational diplomacy, like most of what we do here, is a training ground. Most of us will never become foreign ministers in the macronational sense, but many of us will work in law, public policy, international affairs, or more broadly, in some leadership capacity. What we practice matters, because ultimately, micronationalism is a microcosm of the real world. A microcosm we can shape and influence how we like, and that is a responsibility that needs to be taken seriously. Montevideo gives us the right to claim statehood. Vienna gives us the responsibility to act like it. If we want micronationalism to be taken seriously, either by outsiders or by ourselves, we must conduct foreign relations as if they matter, because they do. Thank you for your time, your attention, and for caring enough about our wonderful community to do the diplomacy the right way. I look forward to your questions. Are there any questions from attendants?